Determined that the workforce was too white.
Turned away because of the color of their skin.
Very rarely do you see a complete encapsulation of what is wrong with the Democratic Party with regard to communication strategy. And you can see it before noon. I mean, it started at 7:30, and I'm going to give you a breakdown of what is problematic and what continues to be problematic about the Democratic Party and the way that they inherently blow it on communications. First thing that has to be said, of course, is that Donald Trump is a liar. He lies, and he lies with the advantage of having an ecosystem, of course, of Republican platforms that amplify his lying. But whether he's a liar or not, whether we agree or not with what he is saying is strategic. What he is doing is strategic. This is a communications war, and this is deliberate. They are planning this, and the Democrats are doing nothing. A number of strategic allies for Trump, and they've been doing this for years now, over a decade, are amplifying his message. They don't check it, they don't question it, they just amplify it.
And have full faith in Secretary Hegseth that amount will start to reduce, that will not be the reality moving forward.
Those allies are Fox News, OAN.
You have a president that, to the advantage of the country, will tell you where his mind is at.
Let's understand that it doesn't really matter what Trump says. It will be amplified by his allies. On the Democratic side, what they do is they bring that knife to a gunfight, not even using the obvious things that could be put right in front of them to their advantage, which happened at 7:30 a.m. this morning with millions of people watching.
We will ask questions, but at the appropriate time. We are in this period right now where families are still being notified. We're trying to figure out what happened. There'll be time for those discussions, I think.
Yeah, I'd just say the same thing. We've been pretty plain about our concerns, but it isn't a good time to speculate right now. We have faith that the NTSB will provide the answers about this.
Rest assured that Kane and Warner aren't doing anything different than any other member would do. They're Democrats, and this is what Democrats do, which is why they're losing. Let's take a look, shall we, at Republican messaging.
Which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg. A real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation?
Classic Trump. Blame Pete Buttigieg, blame the Biden administration.
He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.
Trump knows he's got to say something incendiary that everybody's going to quote. That's what that was, using an expletive.
Regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it. 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity.
Everything they're doing is attacking diversity and inclusion, really anti-blackness, really just straight up racism. It's all going to be amplified by all of their allies, right? And it's going to be amplified by everybody who comes to that mic after Trump leaves the podium.
Air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin. That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority of our aviation industry.
Democrats are saying nothing about that. Absolutely nothing. There's no proof that inclusion had anything to do with the crash, but watch, the Democrats will say nothing about this attack.
Determined that the workforce was too white, that they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent.
They say it again and again and again, and they get no pushback. They've been doing this now since January 2025. Today is January 30. No pushback.
We'll have the best and brightest in every position possible. As you said in your inaugural, it is colorblind and merit-based. The best leaders possible.
And the implication being that if you have any sort of inclusion or diversity, that diverse hire must be incompetent, must not be the best pick. See how they blend that in and they repeat it over and over again?
The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government.
This person talking is a Fox News host accused of rape. And he's saying that everybody else is not qualified. We just had a 4-star general as our Secretary of Defense. But somehow Pete Hegseth is arguing. I mean, it's laughable. And so, but what I want to focus on here is that repetition and branding incompetence to inclusion is what they keep doing. And they're doing it without any pushback.
When we deal with safety, We can only accept the best and the brightest in positions of safety that impact the lives of our loved ones, our family members.
Sean Duffy served in Congress, but he came from the world of reality TV shows. And suddenly now he's the most qualified person in the room to be the transportation secretary?
That is the motto of your presidency, the best and the brightest, the most intelligent coming into these spaces.
President-elect Donald Trump tapped a former Wisconsin congressman turned cable news anchor to join his cabinet.
See all the low-hanging fruit that Democrats have to work with? A reality TV star and some guy that was an anchor at Fox News, and you don't see any Democrats attacking that or bringing that up?
We will ask questions, but at the appropriate time. But we are in this period right now where families are still being notified.
That's a nice sentiment. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. When else are you going to be standing in front of 7 million people to deliver a message? When is that going to happen again for anybody in the Democratic Party? It's one thing to fight and lose. It's another thing to not be fighting at all. They won on the Medicaid argument, but they're not saying anything about diversity. Nothing. Nothing about inclusion. Nothing. And that's because the Republicans have now made those words toxic. Obviously, if you don't push back, you'll lose by default. Of course, the Democrats, as usual, are playing on defense. Trump sets the narrative. He sets the offense. And then the media, of course, starts asking the Democrats, oh, well, what about what Trump said about this? So you're inherently on defense.
Do you have any indication that anybody involved, whether pilots or air traffic controllers, with this incident was hired or recruited based on DEI policies?
Needless to say, that's a stupid question because there is no evidence. So you see how media buys into the narrative?
Not only do I not have any information, the president was asked whether he had any evidence backing up that outrageous and stomach-turning claim, and he had to acknowledge that he did not. Searching for bodies in the Potomac when he was running off at the mouth about this. I hope somebody asked President Trump why he scraps why he decided on January 22 to scrap the Aviation Safety Board.
So that interview happens at 2:30. By that time, the narrative is set. Oh, it might have been a DEI thing. Kane gives a good answer, but remember, the president was questioned on this in the briefing room.
What evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else.
It just could have been. No evidence.
And there are things where you have to go by brain power.
Again, implying that if you're doing diversity, you're not going by brain power. He does it again and again and again. You see, he sets the narrative. He sets the agenda. He gets everybody on defense. He does this over and over again, and he's been doing this for 10 years. For 10 years now. In front of everybody's face. When the Democratic Party develops a strategy, let me know. All of their stuff is on defense. He's on offense. And at this point in the game, 10 years in, there's no excuse for it. This is Lauren Burke. And these are obvious things that I'm pointing out. There ain't nothing complicated about this, and it ain't personal. Kane and Warner are smart guys, which actually makes it even worse, because if they were dummies, I'd sit here and say, okay, well, they're dummies, and that's the reason. That's not the reason. The reason is there's no bigger strategic communication strategy for the Democratic Party. It's bigger than 2 members of Congress. It's bigger than some random member of Congress. No, there's no strategy there. And there is a strategy on the other side, and that is why the Republicans win over and over on communications. I'll be back soon.